we're going to be trying to recreate a similar rim to this one. This is a much lower poly rim. I did make some mistakes on the center part. This is supposed to be circular, but it's not. It's more of an oval on this one, so I'll have to be more careful on this next one. So open up your file. This is where we left off with the last rim, and just go to a new layer. And we're going to just press 3 to go to side view. We don't need this image anymore, so we're just going to hide it by clicking on the eye and then minimizing this by left clicking on it. And then we want to add an image. Press open, go to wherever you saved your images, and this is the one that I want. You can always click on this to see the pictures of these files, but I already know that this is the one that I want, so I'm going to click on open image. As usual, we want to center this and rotate it to one of these spokes. So we're going to center this by holding shift and left clicking and dragging on both of these, and then using the rotation value to rotate this. I'm going to use the spoke that is directly above the Lamborghini logo. That looks good. So we're going to go to the Create tab. We're going to create a plane. Press Tab, R, Y, and then 90. Press Enter. We're going to use a different strategy this time. So we're just going to hold Shift, right click to deselect this vertex, delete vertices. Now you're left with just one vertex, so right click on it to select it. And we're going to move it into place, so I'm going to put it here to start out. This is the end of that crease line. It's going to end right here, so essentially the strategy we're going to use here is we're going to place points at the critical points. In other words, a place where there has to be a point regardless. That's what we're going to try to do, so there needs to be a point here to create the end of this. And then if we press E to extrude and bring this one out, we have to have a point here as well to create the end of this crease line. And then we can E to extrude and bring this down to this point. There has to be one here as well. And you can bring another one over by using E to extrude. We want these to be perfectly even on the Z-axis, so we're going to use snapping. So we're going to grab it on the Z-axis, hold Control and snap here. And we need another point over here. And this crease curves around to this one, and this one as well curves around to this one. So we can do E to extrude, bring this somewhat to the center. Or actually, if we want it perfectly in the center, we can just delete this. Select these two, press F, and then do Control R, left click, right click, and now this one's perfectly in the center between these two. So just drag it up to wherever. Here is pretty good. And then you can continue on, so this one needs to continue on down here. So we can continue it down in this direction, and then continue it down in this direction. And this one continues along this part, so bring it over here, and then bring it over here. I'm keeping this very simple in geometry, so you notice that there's like this curve here, and I only used one point just to keep the geometry really simple at this stage. So another thing you want to look at is where things are in comparison to other things. So for example, like this would be closer to the camera or closer to the picture or the person taking the picture. And then this area would be farther away, like these 2 points would be further away. So if we take these 2 points and drag them further away like that, it's going to be more accurate. And then you'll notice that this point is actually a little bit further back than where this crease line would be. So if we take this point and just bring it back slightly, it'll be more closer to how it's supposed to be. And we can continue this point over to here by using E to extrude, and then extruding back up this way, and then back up this way, and over to here. We're going to go approximately halfway. So now we want to create this line, but we don't have anything right now that's actually supposed to be connected to it. So we're just going to select this vertex, Shift D, bring it over here. Then we're going to E to extrude, bring it up to here. And then E to extrude, bring it over to here. We can continue following some of these lines. So I just select this one, E to extrude, bring this down, because we can see we have this crease line that continues from here all the way down. So we'll just bring this over to here. And then E to extrude and bring it over here. And then bring it over here. And lastly back over to here. So that'll give us this whole area here. And we can take this one, E to extrude, bring it over to here. And it's supposed to join up with this one, so we're going to select these two, press F. I'm going to select this one and reposition it some because on my model I think it was a little bit off. Now we're going to select these four, E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring it down some, bring this one over and snap it on the Z axis to this one, and then bring it over some to better match up with the distance of this crease here. That'll give us this nice crease line in this area, or at least it should. We can take these points back some, because from the reference you can see these are further out, and then these points would be closer to the center of the car. So we can take all of these points actually and bring them back some. But first we want to make sure they have the same X value, so we're going to do S, X, and then 0 to make sure they are the same X value. So scaling by 0 on the X axis will make sure they have the same X value. And then just bring them back slightly to wherever you think is appropriate. And then we need another point here we can see. So we're going to do Control R, left click, G twice to slide this down into position. So bring it down over to here. In this area, what's actually happening, I'm not sure if it's easier to see on some of these others, maybe this one. So it's, you have this crease and then it goes down and meets up with this. So we have this crease here. This is part of the crease. We're going to E to extrude, right click to cancel. We're going to bring it back. And then we're going to bring it over some and down some to better match up with the circle in the middle and this crease here. And then we're going to E to extrude, right click to cancel, and bring it over again because we have this crease line that continues along like right here. So this one will help create that crease line. And then just reposition the vertices as necessary. Next, we want to start curving some of these areas that are supposed to be curved. So we can select the points that are near the curve, or in this case just one point. And I'm going to move it up slightly. Hopefully this will work a little better. And then do Control, Shift, and B to do a vertex bevel. And drag it like this. And then you can mouse wheel up, probably a couple times in this case, until you get a result that you are happy with. I think I did 4 on the other one, but this one looks like 5 is probably going to be good for this one. I could even reposition this vertex up some more and see if that will help get a result closer to what I want. Actually, I think it needed to be down more. But doing a vertex bevel, or just a bevel in general, will make sure that your curves are nicer without having to do any manual calculations or anything, because the bevel function uses a mathematical function to determine where these points are supposed to be located, as well as the curvature. So it just makes your life a little bit easier and makes sure you have nice curves like this. But you can run into some problems, like with this one, since it has an edge connecting down like this. If we do Control Shift B and then we try to mouse wheel up, it gives us some really strange results. So instead, I'm just going to right click. And first what you want to do is get rid of these edges here. So just select both of these edges. Go to Edge Select, select both of these edges, delete, choose Edges. And now it'll be a lot easier to do this. So we can select these two. And I actually want to do these two at the same time as these two, because this is going to be creating a crease line that goes down to here, and this is going to create a crease line down to here. So I want them to have a similar amount of bevel. So now we're going to do Control Shift B and probably just do a small bevel. Something like that is probably okay. And then we can connect this geometry back up. So I'm going to select these 4, press F. Select these 4, press F. And I want to curve this better. So I'm going to select this point, Control Shift B, and get a better curve in this area. That looks like it might be okay, except I may want to just bring this in slightly. I think that should be fine. And if we want to, we can just fill in the rest of this area with faces by selecting these two, pressing F, and then selecting these two, as well as these two, and pressing F. And then we can do A twice, mesh, normals, and flip normals, or actually do Control N to recalculate the normals, and then flip the normals. That should be a little bit better. And in object mode, we can turn on smooth shading. And you won't see much yet because we don't have any faces anywhere else. But that just gets us set up for later when we do add in more faces. So back in edit mode, we can continue creating the curvature. So it's the same process, like you can select these two since we want them to be curved together. Control Shift B, and probably 3 in this case is good. It's fine, I guess, if it doesn't line up perfectly, like this one doesn't line up perfectly, but if you want to, you can do Control Z, reposition the vertex, and then do Control Shift B again until you get a more accurate result. I believe I only did 2 on this corner last time, but 3 is going to look better. But I do think I need to move this vertex in some and then do the bevel. So it's just Control Shift B, mouse wheel up if you need to. We're just trying to keep similar geometry so we can create some quads here. Areas like this will be a little more difficult, but we'll deal with those later. Same with this, it'll be a little more difficult to deal with. We want more curvature in this area. So to create that, we can just do Control R, left click, and we can just manually position this one. And then you can do Control Shift B to get a better curve. And do the same over in this area, using Control R to add in a point. And then Control Shift B to create better curvature in this area. So if you look at the lines, we have some pretty nice lines. The only one that could use probably a little extra is this one right here. Curve it out a bit more than what it was. But I actually think I want to line this up on the inner part of this white line so that we can run an edge loop around the outside. So I want to bring this over to there maybe. And I think that's going to be good. Next, what we're going to do is take these and we're going to bring them down to this area here. But we also want to bring these down as well. But the ones that we want to bring down are actually these two here. So these two that we brought back on the x-axis, these two right here are the ones we want. And then we also want to select these up here. So we want these two and then these. E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale. And now we want to go through one by one and position these along this inner curve here. Just try to keep a somewhat even spacing on these inner ones here. That's probably going to be okay. And then take these two and bring them over to here. And we can take this one and shift select this one, press F to make an edge here because they're going to be connected anyway. And then we want to select all of these We want to make sure that they're on the same x value, so do S, x, and then 0 to make sure that they're at the same x value. And then we want to snap them to these other ones we brought back earlier to make sure that they have the same depth as these. So with these selected, grab it on the x-axis, hold Control, and snap to here. That guarantees that they both have the same x value. And another thing I want to do is do Alt and Shift and right click on this. And then you see we missed one of these vertices, so hold Shift and right click to select it. And I also want to snap on the x-axis to these points, just to make sure that everything has the same amount of depth. And it should be all looking the same in terms of the depth on those areas. To correct the shading, we can press A, Control N, and then do Mesh, Normals, Flip Normals. It's still not smooth here, so in object mode just turn on smooth shading, or select it with right click and then turn on smooth shading. You should see it change to this. The next thing we want to do is to continue this over to here, but one thing about this one is we have this part that was brought down, so we actually need another edge loop to connect up to that part that was brought down. So if we do Control R, left click and drag this up to about here, left click again, then we can take these two and press F, and then these two and press F. Again, the shading is going to be a little messed up, so you can recalculate the normals, flip the normals, do whatever you need to do to correct the shading. But now we're starting to get a better shape to our rim. We have this area there, kind of like they have in the picture. You can adjust it if you're not happy with it, but I think that looks okay for now. Now we're going to select this vertex. We're going to do Control Shift B and mouse wheel up. You can do one mouse wheel up if you want. I'm probably going to do two. This one is likely going to be higher poly than the last one, but it will have better curvature, and since I already started with nicer curvature in these areas, I think it makes sense to continue with nicer curvature. Next, we want to take these two, and we can see this one continues over. This one also continues over, so we're going to E to extrude, bring both of these over to the appropriate location. And then we want to point here so we can make a quad, so we're going to do Control R, left click, G twice, slide this over. Select these two, press F, select these two as well, and press F. Then we can select these two and press F. And we can bring this around like this if we want. So I just reposition this one to set us up to do that. And then E to extrude and bring these over, and we will just continue this curve like this. And bring it in like this over to this one. This one right here, when you're bringing it over, just make sure it has the same Z value as this one so that they're at the same point. So to make sure that they have the same Z value, just grab it on the Z axis, hold Control and snap it. And you can do the same with these two if you want. Snap this one to this one. Now we can just select these two and just continue pressing F until all these are filled in. Or actually these two, we're going to have to select all four of them and then finish it off. This last part I think we'll just end up making a triangle, selecting this and pressing F. We don't want to connect it to this one because this one has to go down to this point here. So now we can do is this, with this one selected, select these four and press F. Now we can alt right click and that's going to get us some extra vertices, I guess. So we're going to deselect all the ones we don't want. So you want these four on the inside. You want these four right here. Then we can E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale it down slightly, but actually you might want to change it to bounding box center, and then do S to scale it down and change it back. And then we're going to do S, X, and then 0 to flatten it out on the X axis. And we're going to bring it backwards, maybe this far or so. And then what we want to do is line it up with the reference. Just move each point individually until you have it lined up with the reference, or at least relatively lined up with the reference. Looks like what we need to do is take these points, so these four, do S, X, and then 0 to make sure that they're zeroed on the x-axis, and then snap them to these other points here. And we may need to do some individual snapping on these points as well, just to make sure that they are maintaining the same x value as their counterparts. Hopefully that will work out okay. So now we can select all, do Control N, and some of the normals are messed up, but I don't think all of them are messed up, so I guess that looks a little better with that. So that's going to be good for that. Now we just need to start filling in the areas that haven't been filled in yet. So we can just take some of these and start filling them in. And I think I'm just going to get rid of this vertex for now, so I'm going to merge it over to this one, so that I can just continue pressing F. So I selected these four, pressed F, then I selected these two and pressed F. I merged this one over so that I can continue selecting 2 and pressing F. Since we had all quads, or we had all geometry set up so that it would make nice quads. This is just the Control N and flipping normals that I have done multiple times already, just so I can get a better look of how everything's looking. So if you look at it now, you can see we're starting to get the shape that we're looking for. We even have like this crease line right here that we want. We've got these crease lines. Things are looking good. So we just have to continue filling things in. So take these two and these two, press F. Take these two, continue pressing F. Now that we're here, it's going to be a little more tricky. We have to decide what we want to do. We could just take these four and press F. That's going to look a little strange probably. If we take this one and extrude it over a little bit, we can make a triangle here with F, and then we can have a quad right here with F, and that'll probably be a little bit better in terms of shading. And we can continue this one over by extruding it with E, and then just keep extruding it until we have the outer edge like this. And then we can take these two and just press F a bunch of times until we have the rest of this rim area. So now we're starting to get that part of the rim. So we can fill in this part of the rim, select these three, press F. And we'll probably end up with a bunch of triangles here unless we want to go back and add in some more geometry. But for now we're going to see what it looks like with just triangles. May or may not look the best. I'm not entirely happy with it. So I'm going to undo it with Control Z, and we'll try adding in some extra geometry here with Control R. Left click and drag this up. And then probably Control R again. We will need to cut across this, it seems, because this was a triangle to begin with. So if we do K for the knife cut tool, hover on this vertex, left click, then drag in this direction, left click, press enter. And do the same for this vertex. I do believe we have two vertices here. Yes, we do. So we need to select this one and this one. Alt M at last. That should help correct the shading. Although we do have another vertex here that we need to get rid of, so we can select it, shift select this one, Alt M at last. I'm just checking to make sure we don't have anything else here that's in the way, so that should be fine. I think we need one more loop here. So what we're going to do is just take this with Alt right click, press Q to slide it over, and then do Control R in the middle right here. It's easier to do that because this is still a triangle and we'd have to use the knife cut tool to fix it. So by sliding this one down and then adding a loop in between, we don't have to use the knife cut tool. So we're just going to continue filling in this area until we get to the end. And that should get a better result, hopefully. I'm going to try repositioning some of these and see if we can get better shading results. I'm just not entirely happy with how the shading looks. We could also just get rid of one of these edges or edge loops and see if the shading improves, but it doesn't look like it does. So we may need to make some other adjustments. Like I think one thing we can do, I just want to check the reference to see if I can tell if this is supposed to be further down or not. I don't think it is. So like you can see these are further back. These points here are further back. So if we take these and snap them on the x-axis to their counterparts, it may or may not help improve the shading. It looks like it doesn't do a whole lot, but I think when we add in the crease lines, things will probably work themselves out. So now what we can do is we can take this and this, as well as this and press F, because that looks like it's going to be clearly a quad right there. To improve the shading here, all we really need to do is add in the crease line that's supposed to be running along here. So to do that, we can just do Control R, left click and drag this up. And what we can do is we can actually do Q and then E to get this a little more to our liking. And we just want to snap these on the x-axis to their respective counterparts here to make sure that they have the same x value. We could potentially do the same for this one. I'm not sure if that's what we want to do. This last one we're not going to do because it makes the shading look bad. So do all of them except for this one. And things should start to look a little nicer. The only thing with doing that is it kind of went up this way rather than continuing around. And we really would rather have it continue around. So we can do Control R again over here and bring this up as well. Using E again if you want to get a similar distance. And we really want this to just connect over here, so we can do K for the knife cut tool and just connect these two that way. And then we have a ton of extra vertices, we can just get rid of them. This is the one that was the original one, so we don't want to get rid of this one. We want to select everything else. Then select this one, Alt-M at last, and that will get rid of that. Another thing that I wanted to do is add in an edge loop here, so just do Control R, left click, right click, and we can get rid of these 2 points, so just deselect these two at the bottom, do delete, dissolve edges, and what I wanted to do is connect this one to this one, and this one to that one. It results in some better shading than what we have now, so we can select this one and this one, J to join. We can get rid of this edge by going to Edge Select, Delete, Dissolve Edges. You can get rid of these two edges, Delete, Dissolve Edges. And actually that gets rid of that point, so we don't want to do that yet. Just do Control Z. Select this point, Shift Select this point, J to join. Now we should be able to safely get rid of these edges. And yes, we can. That's nice. And we want to slide these up with G twice to match a similar distance to the rest of this. Other than that, everything should be looking fairly good. So now we have better shading on this area, which is nice. We can do something similar for this crease line. Do Control R, left click, then E, and get it as close as you feel necessary, and that will help improve the shading on this area as well. To fill in this area here, we're going to do something similar to what we did in this area, where we took these two and created a triangle. So we're going to take these two and create a triangle. So we're going to take this point, E to extrude, bring it over slightly, take these three, press F to make a face. And then we can take these four and press F, and we want to continue this around like this, and then continue connecting our geometry as we go. So we want to E to extrude once. So now we have this connection, E to extrude again. You have this connection, E to extrude, this connection, and continue until you make it to the end here. That should be good. Then you can select these two, and just press F a bunch of times until you have that all connected. To fill in this area here, we actually need another edge loop. So we're going to do Control R, left click, drag this down. And then we can select these two up here and press F, and that will automatically connect these down to there. So now we have a much nicer looking rim at this point. Looks pretty good. So we can save it, go to File, Save. To fill in the rest of this, we're going to want a circle to help guide us to where this is. So we're going to go to Create, we're going to do Circle, change it to 16 vertices, then do RY90, press Enter, scale it down. As usual, it's not going to match up with reference, so we're just going to have to go with whatever we think is appropriate. Not too big, not too small. Like, it's probably going to be smaller than the reference actually is, just because of how we went about making this rim. But this should be fine. So now what we want to do is basically connect these down to the circle. But first we want to Alt right click the circle and snap it on the X to this point. Just make sure it's on the same X value. Another thing we want to do is take these 2 points, do S, X, and then 0. And you'll notice these 2 points are actually where these 2 points are supposed to be. So we actually want to take this on the X-axis and snap to these points. So grab it on the X, snap to these points. That'll just make sure that when we are rotating this, hopefully everything should line up the way that it's supposed to. And you can even take this one and snap it to those points just to make sure that it's going to be okay. So what we can do with these, we can just grab all 4 of these and press F to make a face, or all 5 of them. Then we can take from this one, just do K, left click and drag it down. You can use C for angle constraints if you want. Then left click again and press Enter. It's going to make a nice straight cut the way that we want it. And you can do the same for these. The only thing we're going to have to do now is take these 2 and snap it backwards to these, because it is supposed to be down further even where it connects to the circle. And we could, if we wanted to, just take these and join them down or merge them down, because we're not going to need those extra points. We will need to correct the shading here. To do that, we can do Control R and then left click, press E, and bring it close. It's going to help correct the shading up there. We want to connect these 2, so we can just press F to connect those now. And we can also select these 5 of them. There's 5 of them. We'll just leave it as an N-gon for this. Right now, we'll just leave it as an N-gon. And then we want to just start connecting some of this other geometry here. Trying to keep things quads if we can. We can take this, do the knife cut tool, just to make sure we have an extra vertex here like we're supposed to. And I'm not sure if we want to do a triangle here or not, but that may end up being what we do. This also right here, this one's supposed to end at a point, so we can select this one and shift select this one, Alt M, and do at center, and that will help create that crease that we're supposed to have in that area. Then we're just going to continue filling this in. If we want to, we can do Control R here, and that'll give us this connection here. And then we can add in a couple loops on this side with Control R, mouse wheel up, and we can fill in these areas nicely with quads. As I said, it is going to be higher poly than the last one. The topologies are maybe a little better, but it's definitely going to be higher poly than the last one. If you want to kind of correct some of this shading problem here, one thing we can do is take this one and bring it back slightly. Another thing we can do is just bring these closer in side view. So press 3 in side view, and just bring these closer so that the crease is not as large of a crease, and it will be a little less prominent. Which may or may not be what you're looking for. I figured out that actually the 16-point circle is not going to work, and I'll just give you a quick example of why it's not going to work. So we're going to create a circle. Well, you can just watch if you want. I'm going to create another 16 vertex circle. Rotate it as we did. And we'll just take a look at this. So we have our 16 vertex circle. I'm going to duplicate it and scale it down. So what we're going to be doing, since this is a 5-spoke rim, is rotating by 72 degrees. So now that we have this here, let's rotate 72 degrees. So I'm going to just R72, and you'll see what happens. So here's our original circle where the point is perfectly on this point. So what's going to happen is these points are not going to line up when we do our rotation, which means that these points are not going to match up with these points when we do our rotation. So 16 is not going to work. And I figured out that the numbers that are going to work are multiples of 5 and multiples of 10, because the way you determine how it's going to rotate is 360 divided by your vertex count. So if you had 10 vertices, 360 divided by 10 would be 36. And 36 times 2 is 72, so it'll work out fine as far as the math is concerned. And just to show you, if we do a circle with 10 vertices, and we do the same experiment here where we duplicate and scale it down slightly and then rotate 72 degrees, now you see they still are exactly lined up the way that they were previously. Or at least the vertices are basically, you know, right where they were before. So it's going to work out if you have 10, 20, 30, or if you do 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So we did 16, and I really wasn't happy with how circular it was anyway, so I think we're going to do 20. So I'm going to delete my little example here, and we're also going to delete this entire circle. So just do Alt right click to get this circle part, Alt Shift right click to get the rest of it, and we're just going to delete it. So just do delete vertices, and we're going to do create circle. This time we're going to do 20 because it's going to work out nicely for us. Then do RY, then 90, scale it down to the appropriate size. And again, we want to snap it to this point to make sure that everything lines up. And we want to take these, and we're going to press F to make a face, and we're going to do K for the knife cut. This is all stuff we've done before, so I'm just going to go through it relatively quickly. And to save a little time, I'm going to switch to edge select, select this edge, do tools, subdivide, change number of cuts to 2, vertex select, select the appropriate vertices and press J to join them. Now we want to take these two, grab it on the x-axis, snap it to here. It's the same process we did before. And that should be good for that. If you want to, you can adjust these two over slightly to make it a straighter shot from here to here to make it look a little nicer, hopefully. But that is up to you. Still looks fine, I suppose. I may want to adjust these over just to make it look nicer. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I also determined through testing that we don't need this right here. This one's going to line up almost perfectly with this. So we can alt right click on this till you get these vertices, do delete vertices. And I've also figured out that this needs to actually be quite a bit farther back. It needs to be where this one is. So we're going to take this one, shift select this one, alt M at last. And I'm going to take this one and merge it down to this one as well. So do alt M at last. And then we're going to take these two and bring them back to about here maybe. And take this one and bring it back as well. You can adjust this as you see necessary. I'm going to take these two and merge them. And these two and merge them. And then we have a nice quad right here. So this is actually working out better in terms of topology as well. Other than this triangle, but we're not really concerned about that. So now what we can do is alt right click on this, deselect these two edge vertices, delete, choose vertices. And now we are all set to start rotating this. So press A, change this to 3D cursor. Shift D, R72 and press enter. So things didn't line up perfectly, but they're not usually going to. So up here we're going to select these two, alt M at center. And actually another thing we forgot to do is add in a loop cut here. We can probably just do that now, do Control R. Or it's actually probably better to do it before because this one's not going to have a loop cut. So I'm going to do Control Z a few times until we get back to this. Just in case you have still a duplicate of it, you can do A twice, W, remove doubles. It should remove nothing, but if it removes 169, then you're all set because it removed your duplicate, and that's fine. So we have 4 vertices on this edge, and we have 5 vertices on this edge. That's what we're trying to correct. We need 5 and 5. So we have these 3, which is these 3, and then there's one extra one right here. So we need to do Control R, left click, and drag this up to approximately the same distance as this one. And now we should be all set. So press A twice, Shift D, R72, press enter. Select these two, alt M at center, and select these two. Looks like we needed to slide it up some more, so I'm going to just alt right click, Q to slide it up some more. And then I'm going to merge these two at center and continue merging the rest of these at the center. So now what we need is we need these points to be connecting to each other, but we don't want to merge them at the center really. We want to take these and merge them to these points. So I'm going to take this one, shift select this one, alt M at last. I'm going to take this one, and I think that'll work out okay if we merge it to here, so we'll just merge it to there. So now you can see we have 2 points that we need some loops for. So we can use a knife cut tool and just add in a couple cuts. Use K for the knife cut tool, and then merge these at last again. And that should work out reasonably okay. I'm just going to slide this one with Q a bit closer, and I'm going to slide this one with Q a bit closer, so that the edge loops have more of a consistent distance, just like they did before. And then we can probably join these two with J for now, and that should be that. You can make some adjustments to your mesh if you want by using G. Like, for example, you could bring these down more if you wanted, or you can just leave them as is depending on how you feel. I may just leave them as they are because I think this looks pretty nice as is. Just make sure everything looks good. Like, these connections should look good. We have this nice crease here. Everything looks good. The only thing I'm noticing, we need to join these. So I'm going to select these two. You want to select this one first and then shift select this one, Alt M at last. One thing you'll notice is that when these go down, these actually didn't go down with it. So what we can do is select these here. So select these four plus this one, and just bring them back a little to get a straighter and better angle here. It's just going to help make sure the shading stays a bit nicer in this area. And everything's looking good. We have our crease lines. We have another crease line. Everything's looking like it's pretty much in place at this point. We're just going to save real quick, do File Save. So now what we want is we want to get these edges over to this side, because these edges are now incorrect, as well as these edges. And we also want to carry over all the other changes we made, such as this edge loop and changes to the distance in this area. So what we want to do is delete the stuff that's incorrect. So this whole edge loop is actually incorrect, so we want to delete that. This position here is incorrect, so we want to delete that as well. But what we're actually going to do is we're just going to use circle select and get this whole area here. Anything that may have changed, so we want all these points here. Just try to get this whole crease line, and then all these just like I have them. If you haven't already, you should save it just in case you make a mistake. And then delete vertices. Then what we want is to Alt right click here, Alt and Shift right click here, H to hide. And we want to select a similar area, so we want to select this whole crease line down here and down here. But we also want to select what's connected to it so that we get all the extra connections, and any extra vertices we select by accident are going to get merged together anyway. So if we select something that we're not supposed to select, remove doubles will take care of that issue for us. So just select at the very least like what we need to replace now. So something like this should be fine. Then do Alt H, that's going to get these edges here which we need. And then do Shift D, R -72, and press Enter. Now A twice, W, remove doubles. You may notice that you have a hole here, so just select these four and press F to fill that in. This side is technically incorrect now, so we don't want this spoke anymore. So we're going to Alt right click, Alt and Shift right click on this, H to hide, select the vertex on this piece, do select linked, delete, and choose vertices, Alt H to unhide. Assuming everything was done correctly, this should now be the finished spoke that's going to be used to rotate and make all 5 spokes. So we're going to press A, Shift D, R72, and press Enter, and then do Shift R, and then Shift R. A twice, W, remove doubles. You should see removed 50 vertices. That's the correct number because we have 5 vertices on this edge and 5 vertices on this other edge that's down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you can take a look at our nice finished product here. One thing we can do if you want is back in edit mode, Alt right click on this outer edge, and although it may look relatively circular because we did a fairly good job making it circular, it's not completely circular, and if you want it to be completely circular, you're going to have to do Alt, Shift, and S, and then drag to the right until this bottom value just to the bottom left of my cursor, it says exactly 1, and then press the left mouse button, change this to median point, and then you can scale this out some to the desired distance. And now this is, the outside at least, is perfectly circular, so it will fit more nicely into the tire once we create the tire, of course. So this looks fairly good. The only thing that you may or may not want to fix, as you can see, we have a little shading problem here. It's pretty minor, but you could go in and adjust these points. I'm not actually going to do it, but you could adjust these points and try to correct the shading in this area. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about it because I think it still looks fine the way that it is. It looks actually pretty nice. But if you wanted to, you could make the adjustments here and then do the duplication and rotation process again to make sure that each spoke has the same changes. But I'm relatively happy with this. It looks pretty nice. It's pretty low poly. We're not done with the center yet, but I'm going to save it before we continue. So just go to File and Save.